So, this is today. Today is yesterday, and tomorrow is also today.
You traveled through time to the present.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you get how time travel works.
It's like we're stuck. You know, like a needle on a scratch record.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
Slow down! What are you, in a damn time loop or something?
Groundhog Day Project. Blah, blah, blah. Really? You're gonna mess up on saying the name of the frickin' thing. I wrote 4 years of this blog, and so many episodes of this show now, plus guest spots on Time to Rewind and Groundhog Day Minute. No, Groundhog Minute. Why can't I say that title? Sorry, Sean and Dave. It was a great title for a Groundhog Day minute-by-minute version. To call it Groundhog Minute just makes sense. Now I'm imagining a 1 minute time loop, or even shorter, that one in, what's that movie called? Oh my god. Eternal something? This is gonna fuck with my head forever. Time loop. There's so many time loop things. I'm looking at my list on The Endless. Yeah, The Endless. 2017. In that there are multiple time loops happening, because they're like geographic. And this one guy, his time loop is literally like 5 seconds or less. And that sucks, because when he sees someone outside his tent, he tries to get to them, tries to get their attention. And immediately his loop resets. So he can't do anything. And that sucks. Anyway, that's The Endless. That's the, I don't know, is that the time loop of the week?
Most of life is just junk, right? It's filler. And then there's these moments when all the randomness turns into something perfect. It's like life's dropping all the bullshit just for a second to show us how amazing it could be all the time if it wanted to.
I don't know. I think maybe we're supposed to become like better people. Though I honestly don't even know how that could be possible.
Ever think about it? We must miss so many of them. All those tiny perfect things are just poof, gone, lost forever. But not today.
That is a disturbingly inspirational idea, Mark.
It's a perfect day. You couldn't have planned a day like this.
Well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of work.
Time.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
Time.
What if we found them all? All the perfect things in this one town, in this one day. We could collect them.
Actually, The Endless is a cool movie, because this brothers go back to this cult they used to be a part of, and it turns out this cult is, no one's really aged since the brothers left, and that's because the entire camp is in its own time loop that lasts, I think, like a week or something like that, I forget. And then there's smaller local time loops nearby, and there's some weird supernatural being that is watching over them all and creates these loops to keep them in place. And they do this cool tug of war with this being, and the one guy thinks it's a hoax until he realizes there's no way something could be yanking on this rope up in the air, because there's no tower, no ladder, nothing tall enough nearby. But the time loop stuff is cool because it's playing on a science fiction element, but it's not about trying to solve those time loops. It's about deciding whether or not you want to remain inside one. Because once you leave, these other people move on without you. So I guess that's, if there's a time loop of the week, this week it's The Endless. Interestingly, they had a previous movie. I closed that window. The guys who made The Endless had a previous movie that actually overlaps with The Endless. And so part of what happens in that movie ties into the time loops from The Endless. And they made a more recent movie that had a different kind of supernatural element to it that was also really good. Anyway, Groundhog Day Project blog. Day 214. March. I forgot how I did this. Dated March 3rd, 2014. I am not making it up. So, ... The feud. The Wrap, 25th February 2014, tells us that Harold Ramis and Bill Murray's masterwork, Groundhog Day, is a sly and subversive romantic comedy that justly earned inclusion in the United States National Film Registry and is considered a modern classic. But we know all that. It continues. It also split the longtime friends and film partners apart. They had known each other for decades, had worked together at Second City and the National Lampoon Radio Hour. Ramis co-wrote Meatballs, which starred Murray, directed Caddyshack, which may not have starred Murray, but certainly allowed him to leave an indelible mark on anyone who watched the film, and they co-starred in Stripes together. Ramis's top-grossing film as a director and writer was Ghostbusters, in which they both starred. Then they returned to those roles 5 years later in Ghostbusters 2, and their final collaboration was Groundhog Day. On the set, the general dispute was over the tone of the film. But it was more than that. Tad Friend explains in The New Yorker, 19th April, 2004. Off-screen, Ramis and Bill Murray were trapped in a cycle of personal strains. Murray's marriage was breaking up and he was behaving erratically. The whirling, unpredictable personality that Dan Aykroyd calls the Murricane. The whirling, unpredictable personality that sorry, the tone was wrong for the end of a sentence. Ramis sent Danny Rubin to New York to work with Murray on the script because he was tired of taking his star's 2 a.m. calls. Rubin says that when Ramis phones him to check in, Murray would shake his head and mouth the words, "I'm not here." They were like two brothers who weren't getting along, Rubin says, and they were pretty far apart on what the movie was about. Bill wanted it to be more philosophical, and Harold kept reminding him it was a comedy. At times, Bill was just really irrationally mean and unavailable. He was constantly late on set, Ramis says. What I'd want to say to him is just what we tell our children. You don't have to throw tantrums to get what you want. Just say what you want. After the film wrapped, Murray stopped speaking to Ramis. Some of the pair's friends believe that Murray resents how large a role Ramis had in creating the Murray persona. Michael Schamberg, a Hollywood producer who has known Ramis since college and who used to let Murray sleep on his couch, says, Bill owes everything to Harold, and he probably has a thimbleful of gratitude. Except for brief exchanges at a wake and a bar mitzvah, the two men haven't talked in 11 years, as of 2004. It's a huge hole in my life, Ramis says, but there are so many pride issues about reaching out. Bill would give you his kidney if you needed it, but he wouldn't necessarily return your phone calls. In early March, Ramis prevailed on Brian Doyle Murray to ask his brother if he would take part in the ice harvest. That was a weird sentence. What's the ice harvest? I don't know. Brian reported that Bill said no. Thanks. When Ramis asked if Bill said anything more, anything personal, Brian said that his brother hadn't mentioned Ramis at all. At around the same time, I, Tad Friend, reached Murray after several attempts and told him that I was writing about Ramis and would love to talk to him. Really, Murray said. It was hard to tell what he meant by that, really. He suggested that I call him back in a week. When I did, he said, I've thought about it, and I really don't have anything to say. In an interview with the AV Club, 19th June 2009, Ramis says that he and Murray have no social relationship whatsoever. But he admired and respected Murray's exploration of his more adult, serious side of himself, in films like Rushmore and Lost in Translation. Still, he says, I just had so little social contact with him that I don't have any perspective on anything he does, thinks, or feels, and he gives no clues. There's a story that seems almost unconfirmable despite being all over the internet. Supposedly, as the feud was getting going and Murray was being troublesome on the set, or maybe it was after production was over, it's hard to tell, he hired a new personal assistant who was a deaf mute, just to piss people off. While this sort of thing might fit with Ramis calling him irrationally mean above, it also seems unique enough that someone would have asked Ramis specifically about it. I also suspect that any deaf-mute available for hire would probably actually be pretty damn good at communicating with people by other means. Hell, such an assistant would probably help things along better than a hearing, speaking assistant. It makes for a nice story, though. Well, not nice, but certainly something worthy of being passed on. I'm even perpetuating it right now when I don't have good reason to believe it to be true. Anyway, the feud. World Entertainment News Network, a newswire service, reported 27 February 2014 that Bill Murray ended the feud finally visiting Harold Ramis on his deathbed. The story doesn't seem to have been picked up by any big media outlet. I found it on Fox 16 out of Little Rock and ABC4 out of Salt Lake City, which makes it a little suspect to me. Well, that, and it cites the National Enquirer as a source. It makes for a nice little story, though. Brian Doyle Murray acting as a peacemaker, telling Bill he needed to put aside his differences, and see his pal one last time before he was gone. Supposedly, Bill and Harold talked about Chicago and the Cubs, the city's baseball team. They'd both been lifelong fans. After that, Harold was finally at peace, and so was Bill. It's a bit too simple. No, the feud never ended. Ramis and Murray never made up. Today's reason to repeat a day forever: to find anyone with whom I have ever feuded, and earn or offer forgiveness.
First, I played the game by the rules from 1 to 10. Then you took me round again.
I think I have traveled through time.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is.
Man, are you hungry? I haven't eaten since later this afternoon.
Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.